I took the job because my brother left it to me in his will, along with $8,000 in credit card debt and a pickup truck that needed a new transmission. The observatory paid $400 a night, 5 nights a week, and the supervisor who met me at the access gate said most people lasted 3 months before they found something else. He didn't say why. The drive up took 40 minutes from the valley floor, switchbacks cutting through pine and aspen until the trees thinned and the road turned to gravel. The facility sat at 11,200 feet, a white dome against granite and sky. 3 smaller outbuildings clustered nearby. Equipment storage, the old weather station, and what the supervisor called the secondary observation post. He was 60, maybe older, with hands that shook when he held the clipboard. "Your brother kept good logs," he said, handing me a ring with 14 keys. "Read everything he wrote. Don't skip pages thinking you know better." The security office was in the main building's basement level, accessible by exterior stairs that descended along the north face. Cinder block walls painted institutional beige, a metal desk with 2 monitors showing camera feeds, a cot with a sleeping bag that still smelled like my brother's cigarettes, a propane heater with a handwritten note taped to it. "Do not run after 1:45 a.m. The supervisor set a 3-ring binder on the desk. "Protocols," he said. "Read them tonight before your first patrol. All of them." "What am I watching for?" "Equipment damage, trespassers, weather changes." He looked at the small window set high in the wall, showing a rectangle of twilight. "Disruptions. Disruptions. You'll know them when you see them. Follow the protocols. Your brother did mostly." He left without shaking my hand. I made coffee on the hot plate and opened the binder. My brother's handwriting covered the margins of the printed pages, small and precise. The first page was titled Core Operational Procedures and numbered 1 through 12. 1. Begin evening patrol at exactly 9 p.m. Check all external doors in this order: main entrance, loading bay, secondary post, equipment storage, weather station. Record time of each check to the minute. 2. Between 10:15 p.m. and 10:30 p.m., monitor the western camera feed only. Do not watch other feeds during this window. If you hear knocking, do not investigate until 10:30 p.m. has passed. 3. The dome observation deck is off limits between midnight and 5 a.m. The door will be locked. Do not unlock it for any reason, even if you receive a radio call requesting access. 4. At 1:45 a.m., turn off the basement heater. Exterior temperature does not matter. Wait 15 minutes before beginning the post-midnight patrol. 5. If you encounter anyone on the grounds between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., verify their identification badge has a blue stripe. Do not engage with personnel showing red or yellow stripes. Return to the office immediately and lock the door. 6. The weather station is closed for renovations. Do not enter, even if lights are visible inside. Do not respond if someone inside calls your name. 7. Every hour on the hour, radio channel 7 with the phrase "Observatory clear, conditions normal." Use only this phrase. If dispatch responds with anything other than "copy, continue standard patrol," do not acknowledge. Wait 5 minutes and try again. 8. At 3:30 a.m., count the number of vehicles in the parking area from the office window. There should be one yours. If there are 2 or more, do not go outside until sunrise. 9. Kitchen access is permitted until 2 a.m. After 2 a.m., use only the basement break room. The basement door must remain closed and locked from the inside when you are in the office. 10. If the motion sensor for the southern perimeter activates, check the camera feed first. If you see a figure moving toward the facility, note its clothing. Observatory personnel wear navy blue jackets with white emblems. Any other color, log it and stay inside. 11. At 4:45 a.m., begin the pre-dawn patrol. Check the same doors in reverse order. If any door is unlocked that you locked earlier, do not enter that building. Radio for day shift supervisor and wait in your vehicle. 12. Day shift arrives at 6:30 a.m. Do not leave the facility until you have confirmed their arrival in person and transferred the key ring. Do not transfer keys to anyone arriving before 6:25 a.m. My brother had written in the margin next to Rule 7, exact words, nothing else, next to Rule 6. They will sound like someone you know. My chest tightened. I checked the time. 8:53 p.m., 7 minutes until first patrol. The camera feeds showed empty gravel paths in the parking area with my truck and a white sedan I assume belonged to the day's supervisor. The western camera pointed at a stretch of open ground between the main building and the equipment storage shed, 50 yards of dirt and scrub grass. The southern camera covered the access road and tree line 200 yards downslope. At exactly 9 p.m., I took the flashlight and key ring and climbed the exterior stairs. The air had teeth. I could see my breath. The main entrance was locked, solid. I wrote the time in the log. 9:01 p.m. loading bay, locked. 9:04 p.m. The secondary post sat 30 yards east, a small brick structure with a sliding door. Locked. 9:07 p.m. equipment storage. The padlock was cold enough to burn my fingers. Locked. 9:09 p.m. The weather station was last, set back from the others closer to the tree line. It was dark inside, but as I approached, I thought I saw movement in one of the windows. A flicker, like someone passing through a doorway. I stopped at 20 feet. Rule 6. The building looked like it had been sealed for months. Plywood over, one window. No footprints in the dust around the door. But I could hear something faint and rhythmic. It could have been wind through a gap in the boards, or it could have been breathing. I logged it. 9:12 p.m. Weather station exterior check, no entry. Then I walked back to the office without looking behind me. At 10:13 p.m., I made more coffee and watched the western camera feed. At 10:16 p.m., there was knocking. 3 solid strikes against the office door, the one that led into the main building's interior hallway. I turned toward the sound, then forced myself to keep my eyes on the monitor. The western feed showed nothing, just the empty ground between buildings. The knocking came again, 5 strikes this time, evenly spaced. I counted my breaths and watched the monitor. 10:22 p.m. The knocking had stopped. 10:30 p.m. came and I let myself look at the door. It was still closed, still locked from the inside. I got up and checked the lock anyway, tested the handle. Solid. The rest of the night stretched out like a highway through empty country. At 11 p.m., I radioed. Observatory clear, conditions normal. Static crackled, then, copy, continue standard patrol. The correct response. I logged it. At midnight, I tried the dome door out of curiosity just to confirm. Locked. I didn't have a key for it on the ring. I stood in the hallway and listened. Nothing. Just the hum of the building's ventilation system. 1:45 a.m. I turned off the heater. The cold came in fast. I put on my brother's jacket, the one he'd left hanging on the back of the office chair. It still had his name tag pinned to it. I took the tag off and put it in the desk drawer. At 2 a.m., I started the post-midnight patrol. The sky was clear enough to see the Milky Way, a bone-white smear across the black. My flashlight beam looked weak and small. Main entrance locked. Loading bay locked. Secondary post locked. At the equipment storage shed, I saw tracks. Boot prints in the dust near the door, leading from the direction of the weather station and stopping at the threshold. They were fresh, the edges sharp. I counted 7 prints, evenly spaced, then nothing. Just the door and the padlock, untouched. I logged it. 2:14 a.m. Boot prints at equipment storage, no entry evident. Then I walked back to the office watching the tree line. At 3 a.m., I radioed again. The response was correct. At 3:30 a.m., I counted vehicles from the window. 1. My truck. I made it to 4 a.m. on adrenaline and bad coffee. At 4:45 a.m., I did the reverse patrol. Weather station locked. Equipment storage locked. Secondary post locked. Loading bay locked. Main entrance locked. The boot prints were gone. The dust looked like no one had walked there in weeks. The day supervisor arrived at 6:32 a.m. in the white sedan. He looked at my face and nodded like he understood something. "Read the rest of the binder," he said. I drove down the mountain with the heater on full and my hands shaking on the wheel. The second night I read the amendments. They were printed on yellow paper, inserted behind the core procedures. No title, just addendum. Revised protocols and a date from 4 months ago. My brother's handwriting was heavier here, more urgent. 13. If you see lights moving inside the weather station, count them. 1 light is wind reflection. 2 lights, log it. 3 or more lights, radio immediately using channel 7 and wait for instructions. 14. Do not accept food or drink from anyone on site except items you brought yourself. If someone offers you coffee or a meal, decline politely and report the interaction in your log. 15. Between 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m., footsteps may circle the main building. Do not open the door. Do not look out the window. Stay at the desk and continue monitoring feeds. 16. If the southern perimeter alarm activates 3 times in one night, disable it using the panel in the office. Do not reset it until after sunrise. 17. At exactly 3 a.m., check the western camera feed. If you see a figure standing in the center of the open ground facing the main building, note its position. Check again at 3:05 a.m. If it has moved closer, radio for support on channel 7. If it has not moved, continue standard protocol. 18. Observatory personnel do not work night shifts except for scheduled observation sessions, which will be announced at evening handoff. If you encounter someone who claims to be staff, ask for the daily code phrase. The phrase will be provided at handoff. Anyone who does not know the phrase is not permitted on grounds. 19. Do not use the bathroom in the main building hallway between midnight and 5 a.m. Use only the basement facility adjacent to the office. 20. If you hear your name called from outside, do not answer. If you hear your name called from inside the building, verify the speaker's location before responding. 21. Keep the office door to the interior hallway locked at all times. The only person with authorization to unlock it from the hallway side is the day shift supervisor, and only after 6:25 a.m. 22. Salt lines are maintained at all exterior thresholds. If you notice a break in a salt line, repair it immediately using the container stored under the desk. Do not step over a broken line to make repairs. My brother had written next to Rule 15, they complete the circle in 38 minutes. Stay inside. Next to Rule 20, Mom's voice, not Mom. I sat with that for a long time. The day supervisor gave me the code phrase during handoff. Standard rotation. What happens if someone doesn't know it? I asked. You've read the protocols. But what actually happens? He looked at me with something like pity. Nothing if you follow the rules. Everything if you don't. Drew, second night was colder. I started the patrol at 9 p.m. Exactly, checked the doors, logged the times. At 10:16 p.m., the knocking came again, but this time it was on the window, the small rectangle of glass set high in the basement wall. I kept my eyes on the western feed. The knocking became scratching. I turned up the volume on the monitor to drown it out. At midnight, I was drinking coffee when the dome door rattled. I could hear it through the ceiling, metal on metal, like someone was trying to force the lock. It went on for 3 minutes by my watch, then stopped. At 1:45 a.m., I turned off the heater. At 2 a.m., I went outside. The air was still. No wind, no sound except my boots on gravel. Main entrance locked. Loading bay locked. Secondary post locked. I was walking toward the equipment storage shed when I saw someone standing near the weather station. They wore a dark jacket, hands in pockets, facing away from me toward the tree line. I couldn't see their face. I stopped and pulled out my flashlight, but I didn't turn it on. Rule 5 said verify identification between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Rule 18 said ask for the code phrase. "Hey," I called. My voice sounded thin in the open air. The figure didn't move. "I need to see your badge." Nothing. I took 3 steps closer. "What's the daily phrase?" The figure turned slowly, and I saw it was wearing a navy jacket with a white emblem. Observatory personnel. But the face was wrong. The proportions were off, features blurred like a photograph taken through fogged glass. It stared at me with eyes that didn't reflect my flashlight beam. I backed toward the office, watching it. It didn't follow. It just stood there, hands in pockets, head tilted at an angle that made my stomach turn. I locked the office door and logged it. 2:09 a.m. Personnel at weather station, no badge verification, did not respond to code phrase request. Then I sat at the desk and watched the Southern camera feed until my hands stopped shaking. At 2:32 a.m. the footsteps started. They circled the building clockwise, steady and measured. I could track them by sound: north side, east side, south side, west side. They passed the office window, and I looked at the wall instead, at the peeling paint and the stains from old water damage. The footsteps completed the circle and started again. I counted. 38 minutes exactly. Then silence. At 3 a.m. I checked the western feed. There was a figure standing in the center of the open ground facing the main building. Same dark jacket, same wrong proportions. I noted its position in the log and set a timer for 5 minutes. At 3:05 a.m. I checked again. It was closer, not by much, maybe 10 yards. But it had moved without walking, without transitioning through the space between. Just farther, then closer. I radioed channel 7. Observatory clear, conditions normal. Static then. Copy, continue standard patrol. Wrong response. I waited 5 minutes. Observatory clear, conditions normal. Acknowledged. Day shift at 06:30. Right response. I put the radio down and watched the monitor. The figure was still there at 3:27 a.m. At 3:35 a.m., it was gone. I stayed in the office until 4:45 a.m., when I forced myself to do the final patrol. The doors were locked. The weather station was dark. The boot prints were back, 7 of them leading nowhere. Day shift arrived on time. I handed over the keys and didn't mention the figure in the jacket. On the 3rd night, I found my brother's personal log. It was tucked behind the binder in the desk drawer, a spiral notebook with a water-damaged cover. The entry started 8 months ago, just after he'd taken the job. The first few pages were mundane: arrival times, weather notes, coffee consumption. Then the tone shifted. Week 3. The knocking is always at the same time. Counted it tonight. Exactly 14 minutes after I start watching the western feed, like something knows when I'm looking and when I'm not. Week 5. Saw the thing in the jacket again. It got closer this time before I radioed, maybe 20 feet from the door. I could see its hands. They were backwards, palms facing out where the knuckles should be. Week 8. Figured out the footsteps. They're pacing the perimeter looking for gaps in the salt. Takes them 38 minutes to complete the circle. If the salt lines are solid, they start over. If there's a break, they stop at that point. Don't know what happens next. Don't want to find out. Week 10. Checked the salt lines tonight before my shift. Found a gap at the loading bay threshold, maybe 3 inches wide. Repaired it from the inside using the long-handled brush. Something was standing in the parking lot watching me work. Didn't look at it directly. Finished the repair and locked the door. It was gone when I checked the camera. Week 12. New rule. Don't look at the dome door after midnight. It doesn't just rattle anymore. Sometimes it opens. Week 14. Martinez told me they're hiring a second night guard. Said the workload is too much for one person. I think he's lying. I think something happened to the last guy who tried to help me and they don't want to admit it. Found a jacket in the storage closet with a name tag I didn't recognize. It had burns on the sleeves. Week 16. Something's wrong with the weather station. I see movement inside every night now, multiple figures. They're doing something in there, organizing, preparing. I told the supervisor. He said to keep following the protocols. Week 18. The rookie started tonight. Kid named Dennis, maybe 22. Showed him the protocols, watched him do the first patrol. He laughed at Rule 6. Said his girlfriend worked renovations and there was no crew at the weather station. I told him to follow the rules anyway. He said he would. Week 18. Night 2. Dennis is gone. He went inside the weather station during the 2 a.m. patrol. I heard him screaming for about 40 seconds, then nothing. I radioed Martinez. He came up at 4 a.m. with 2 other men. They went inside with lights and respirators. Came out 20 minutes later. They wouldn't tell me what they found. Martinez gave me an amended copy of the protocols and told me to burn Dennis's time card. Week 20. I broke Rule 6 tonight. I'm sorry. I heard Mom calling from the weather station and I opened the door. It wasn't her. It wore her face, but the voice was coming from somewhere behind its teeth. It asked me to come inside. I ran back to the office and reinforced the door with the filing cabinet. If you're reading this, don't make the same mistake. The rules are the only thing keeping this place from bleeding through. The last entry was dated a week before my brother died. I closed the notebook and checked the time. 8:57 p.m. The 4th night, I started keeping my own log. I wrote down everything. The exact time the knocking started, the number of scratches on the window, the angle of the figure's head when it turned to look at me. I measured distances. From the office to the equipment shed, 43 paces. From the main entrance to the weather station, 79 paces. From the tree line to the southern perimeter, approximately 160 yards. At 10:16 p.m., the knocking came. 7 strikes on the window, then silence. At midnight, the dome door rattled for 4 minutes. At 2 a.m., I found something new during patrol. There was a length of rope lying on the ground between the secondary post and the equipment shed. It was arranged in a perfect circle, maybe 6 feet in diameter. The rope was new, nylon, bright yellow. It hadn't been there at 9 p.m. I didn't touch it. I logged the position and continued my patrol. At 2:34 a.m., the footsteps started. This time I timed them with precision. The pattern was exactly 38 minutes and 12 seconds. North side at 2:34, east side at 2:43, south side at 2:52, west side at 3:01, back to north at 3:10. Then they stopped. At 3 a.m., I checked the western feed. The figure was there, but this time it was holding something. A flashlight, I thought, or something shaped like a flashlight. The beam was pointing at the ground. At 3:05 a.m., it was 15 yards closer. The beam was pointing at the office window. I radioed. The response was correct on the first try. At 4:45 a.m., I did the final patrol. The rope circle was gone. On the 5th night, Martinez gave me a new code phrase. Clear rotation. Why the change? I asked. Standard security practice. Phrases rotate weekly. My brother never mentioned that. Martinez looked uncomfortable. Your brother worked here longer than anyone else. Some of the protocols were modified based on his recommendations. What kind of modifications? The salt lines, the heater rule, the bathroom restriction. He handed me a clipboard. Supply inventory. Check it against your stock before you start tonight. The list was detailed. 12 road flares, 4 gallons of water, 8 D-cell batteries, 2 emergency blankets, 300 feet of nylon rope, a first aid kit, a fire extinguisher, a sealed plastic box labeled "Emergency, Use Only." "What's in the box?" I asked. "Something you'll need if things go wrong. Don't open it unless you have no other choice." I checked the supplies. Everything matched the list except the rope. There were only 200 feet in the storage locker. "We're short on rope," I said. Martinez made a note. "I'll bring more tomorrow." That night I found 3 more rope circles on the grounds, one near the loading bay, one at the perimeter fence, one directly in front of the weather station door. Each circle was exactly 6 feet in diameter. I didn't touch them. I documented their positions and continued following the protocols. At 2:47 a.m., during the footsteps, something changed. The pattern broke. The footsteps reached the south side of the building and stopped. I heard breathing outside the window, low and steady, then a voice. "Is anyone in there?" It sounded like Dennis, the rookie my brother had mentioned. Young voice, uncertain. "I'm lost. I need help." "Can you let me in?" I watched the monitor. The southern camera showed nothing. "Please, I've been walking for hours. I don't know where I am." I sat at the desk and kept my eyes on the screen. The breathing continued for another 11 minutes. Then the footsteps resumed, completing their circle. On the 6th night, all 3 rope circles were gone. In their place, someone had drawn marks in the dirt, not symbols, numbers. The first said 38, the second, 214, the third, 316, times the footsteps, the boot prints, the knocking on the window. I checked my logs. The numbers matched exactly. Someone was watching. Someone was counting. At 2 a.m., I found the figure standing in the parking lot, 30 feet from my truck. It wasn't moving, it was just standing there, facing the office, hands in pockets. I took a photograph with my phone. When I looked at the screen, the image was corrupted. Static and distortion, like the camera couldn't process what it was seeing. At 3 a.m., I checked the western feed. The figure was 20 feet from the door. I radioed. Wrong response. I waited and tried again. Correct response. At 3:30 a.m., I counted 2 vehicles in the parking lot. Mine and a dark sedan I didn't recognize. Rule 8 said not to go outside if there were 2 or more vehicles. I stayed in the office and watched the monitors. At 4:15 a.m., the sedan was gone. On the 7th night, the southern perimeter alarm activated. First time at 1:12 a.m., I checked the camera feed. Nothing visible, just trees and the access road. I logged it. Second time at 1:48 a.m., still nothing on the feed. I logged it. Third time at 2:23 a.m., I disabled the alarm as instructed and sat in the dark, listening. At 2:35 a.m., the footsteps started, but this time they stopped on the south side of the building, right outside the office window. I heard breathing, low and steady, and then a voice. "Open the door." It sounded like my brother. "I know you're in there. I need to give you something. Open the door." I stared at the monitor, at the western feed showing empty ground. "Please, I don't have much time." My hand moved toward the lock before I caught myself. I pulled back, gripped the edge of the desk, and waited. The breathing continued for another 6 minutes, then the footsteps resumed, completing their circle. At 3 a.m., I checked the western feed. The figure was standing 5 feet from the door. I could see details now. The jacket was my brother's, the one I was wearing, except it wasn't. The emblem was backwards. The zipper was on the wrong side. The face was his face, but younger, smoother, like someone had made a copy from an old photograph and gotten the depth wrong. I grabbed the radio. "Observatory clear, conditions normal." No response, just static. I tried again. "Observatory clear, conditions normal." Static. Then a voice that might have been my brother's. "Come outside, we need to talk." I switched off the radio and watched the monitor. The figure stood there until 4:17 a.m. Then it was gone. I survived until day shift arrived. The supervisor looked at me and said, "You're doing better than most." On the 8th night, I found more pages in my brother's log. They'd been tucked into the back, loose sheets folded and compressed. Week 21. Can't sleep during the day anymore. Keep seeing the thing from the weather station in my peripheral vision. Doctor says it's stress, gave me pills. They don't help. Week 22. Tried to quit. Martinez talked me into staying, said they'd increase my pay to $500 a night. Said I was the only one who understood how to maintain the protocols properly. I said yes. I need the money. Sarah's medical bills aren't getting any smaller. Week 23. Something's changed. The manifestations are more aggressive. The figure in the jacket got within 10 feet of the door last night. I could see its hands clearly. The fingers are too long. They bend wrong. Week 24. Found Martinez's predecessor's notes in the storage locker. The facility has been experiencing anomalous events since it opened in 1967. 3 security guards have died on site. 2 disappeared. One, a man named Carter, walked into the weather station in 1983 and never came out. They sealed the building after that. It's been sealed for 41 years. Week 25. The protocols work, but they're not permanent. Each year, the manifestations get stronger. They learn. They adapt. Martinez says the facility is considering a shutdown, but the research is too valuable. They're observing something up here, something in the space between light and dark. Something that observes back. Week 26. I did something stupid. I opened the emergency box. Inside was a railroad flare, a hand-drawn map, and a note that said, "Use only if they breach. Follow the map to the old maintenance bunker. Lock yourself inside. Someone will come at dawn." The map shows a building I've never seen, 500 yards past the southern tree line. I put everything back. I don't want to know what would force me to use it. The pages ended there. I checked the storage locker. The emergency box was still there, sealed with red tape. I didn't open it. On the 10th night, I found the emergency protocols. They were printed on red paper, inserted at the back of the binder. My brother hadn't written on these pages. The margins were clean. Emergency protocols use only during critical events. A critical event is defined as facility breach, multiple manifestations, communication failure lasting more than 30 minutes, or supervisor authorization. 23. If manifestations enter the office, retreat to the basement bathroom and lock the door. Place salt across the threshold. Remain silent. They cannot enter running water. Turn on the shower and wait until day shift arrival. 24. If communication with day shift fails, do not leave the facility. Remain in the office with the interior door barricaded. Day shift will enter through the exterior stairs. Do not open any door that is knocked on from the inside. 25. If you witness a manifestation mimicking a specific person you know, do not speak to it. Do not say the person's name aloud. Acknowledgement strengthens the connection. 26. If the power fails, use only the emergency flashlight stored under the desk. Do not use your personal flashlight. Do not use candles or the propane heater. Remain in darkness as much as possible. 27. If manifestations surround the building and prevent patrol completion, document the incident and wait for sunrise. Day shift will clear the perimeter before entry. I read them 3 times, hoping I wouldn't need them. The storm came on the 14th night. The supervisor warned me during handoff. Weather system moving in, high winds, possible power fluctuations. If the lights go out, you know what to do. Follow the protocols. Exactly. He paused. Your brother handled 4 blackouts. 3 of them went fine. The 4th, he didn't finish. What happened the 4th time? He survived. That's what matters. The wind started at 10 p.m., strong enough to rattle the door. At 11:30 p.m., the lights flickered. I got the emergency flashlight from under the desk and set it next to the radio. I checked the salt lines, all solid. At midnight, the power failed. The monitors went dark. The hum of the refrigerator in the break room died. I sat in absolute darkness and listened to the wind scream around the building. Then I heard the dome door open. The sound was unmistakable. Metal sliding, hinges creaking, and then footsteps on the stairs. Multiple sets of footsteps descending from the observation deck. I fumbled for the emergency flashlight and turned it on. The beam was weak, barely enough to illuminate the office. I checked the interior door, locked. I pushed the filing cabinet in front of it anyway. The footsteps reached the basement level. They moved down the hallway outside the office, slow and measured. I counted 4 distinct patterns. 4 sets of feet. Someone knocked on the interior door, not the rhythmic knocking from other nights. This was deliberate, patient. "Security," a voice said. "We need access to the office. There's been an equipment failure." I didn't answer. "Please open the door. We're observatory staff. We have authorization." The voice was calm, professional. It sounded real. I gripped the flashlight and stayed silent. "Your name is in the log. We know you're in there. This is a direct order. Open the door." I thought about Rule 25. Do not speak to it. Do not say the person's name aloud. The knocking came again, harder. The door shook in its frame. I heard something else now, underneath the knocking, whispering. Multiple voices layered and overlapping, saying things I couldn't quite parse. I backed toward the bathroom, flashlight aimed at the door. The filing cabinet scraped across the floor, moving on its own. The door handle turned. I ran into the bathroom, slammed the door, and locked it. The salt container was on the back of the toilet where my brother must have left it. I poured a line across the threshold, thick and unbroken. The whispering grew louder. Footsteps in the office, things being moved and searched. The bathroom door rattled once, testing. I turned on the shower. The water came out rust brown, then clear. I stood in the corner, flashlight off too, saved the battery and listened to the water run. The sounds outside faded. The whispering stopped. I waited there until I saw gray light through the bathroom's small ventilation grate. 6 hours, maybe more. My legs cramped. My mouth was dry. But I stayed until I heard the exterior stairs creak and the day supervisor's voice calling through the door. "It's Martinez. Day shift. Power's back on. You can come out." I opened the bathroom door. The office was destroyed. Desk overturned, monitors smashed, filing cabinet on its side. The interior door was closed and locked, but the wood around the lock was splintered like something had tried to force it from the other side. Martinez looked at the damage and nodded. "You did good. Followed protocol." "What were they?" "Does it matter?" "It does to me." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "This facility sits on thin ground, has for a long time. The work we do here, the observations, they require certain conditions. Darkness, altitude, isolation. But those same conditions attract other things. Things that exist in the spaces we're trying to study." He gestured at the ruined office. "The protocols keep them manageable, keeps them outside, mostly. My brother broke a rule. I know. Is that why he's dead?" Martinez looked at me with tired eyes. "Your brother had a heart attack in his sleep, at home. The coroner confirmed it, natural causes. But the weather station? He heard someone he loved. He made a choice. It didn't take him that night, but it marked him. Marked him enough that his body gave out 3 weeks later." Martinez picked up the overturned chair and set it upright. "The rules aren't perfect, but they're all we have." They replaced the monitors and repaired the door. I was back on shift 2 nights later. On the 17th night, I saw lights in the weather station, 3 of them moving in the windows. bright white like flashlights. They moved in formation, systematic, searching. I radioed. Observatory clear, conditions normal. Copy, hold position. 5 minutes later. Dispatch to security, confirm light count at weather station. 3 lights, moving pattern, west-facing windows. Copy, maintain distance, do not approach, logging incident. The lights continued for another 12 minutes, then went dark. All at once, like someone had thrown a switch. I watched the building for another hour. Nothing moved. On the 19th night, I met the new trainee. Martinez brought her up during evening handoff. Her name was Claire, mid-30s, former EMT. She had the look of someone who'd seen bad things and learned to function anyway. 2-person shifts now, Martinez said. Standard protocol for winter months. Claire will shadow you for 3 nights, then you'll alternate coverage. My brother trained someone, I said. Dennis. Martinez's expression didn't change. Claire has read the incident reports. She knows what happened to Dennis. She knows the risks. Claire extended her hand. I need the work. Martinez says you follow the rules. That's good enough for me. We shook. Her grip was firm. The first night with Claire went smoothly. I showed her the patrol route, the camera feeds, the radio protocols. At 10:16 p.m., when the knocking started, she flinched but stayed watching the monitor. Don't look at the door, I said. I won't. At 2:38 a.m., when the footsteps started circling, she gripped the edge of the desk but stayed seated. I could see her counting under her breath, timing the pattern like I did. 38 minutes, she said when they stopped. Exactly. What are they looking for? Gaps in the salt, unlocked doors, people who don't follow the rules. At 3 a.m., we checked the western feed together. The figure was there, 25 yards out. Claire stared at it for a long moment. That jacket, she said. That's observatory issue. Yes, but the person wearing it isn't right. No. She logged it without another word. The second night, Claire asked about the weather station. What's really in there? I don't know. My brother went inside once, came back wrong. Wrong how? He heard our mother's voice, but she'd been dead for 6 years. Claire was quiet for a moment. My sister died when I was 17. Car accident. Sometimes I hear her voice in empty rooms, just for a second. That's grief. What's in the weather station is something else. How do you know the difference? Because grief doesn't ask you to open doors. It doesn't try to get inside. At 2:04 a.m. during patrol, Claire stopped at the equipment shed. There, she said, pointing. In the dust. New tracks. Not boot prints this time, something else. Drag marks, parallel lines about 2 feet apart, leading from the tree line to the shed door. Like someone pulled something heavy, Claire said. Or something with too many legs, I said. We logged it and returned to the office early. On the 3rd night, Claire found something in my brother's notes. There's a date circled here, she said, pointing at the margin of week 18. December 10th. That's tonight. I looked at the page. My brother had written, Convergence event. All protocols critical. What's a convergence event? Claire asked. I don't know. Martinez had left a note with the evening supply drop. Extra salt, extra batteries, emergency box accessible if needed. Return all keys during handoff. No exceptions. That felt wrong. Martinez never changed the key transfer protocol. At 9 p.m. and we started patrol together. Everything was locked. Everything was normal. But the air felt different, denser. Like the pressure had changed. At 10:16 p.m., the knocking came from 3 directions at once. The interior door, the window, the exterior stairs. Claire's hand moved toward the door lock. Don't, I said. She pulled back, nodded. At midnight, the dome door didn't just rattle. It opened, We could hear it through the ceiling, the sound of metal sliding and then footsteps. Many footsteps, descending in formation. "The protocols say the door is locked," Claire whispered. It was. At 1:45 a.m., I turned off the heater. The cold came fast and mean. Claire put on her jacket and zipped it to her chin. At 2 a.m., we went outside for patrol. The figure was waiting in the parking lot. Not one figure, 7 of them. All wearing observatory jackets, all standing in a line between us and the buildings. Their faces were wrong in the same way, blurred and proportioned badly. "Back to the office," I said. We retreated down the stairs. I locked the door and radioed. "Observatory clear, conditions normal." Static. No response. I tried again. Still nothing. "Communication failure," Claire said. "That's a critical event. We follow Emergency Protocol 24, barricade and wait for day shift." We pushed the desk against the interior door and the filing cabinet against the exterior door. Then we sat and watched the monitors. At 2:26 a.m., all 7 figures were standing at the base of the exterior stairs, looking up at the camera. At 2:38 a.m., the footsteps started. But this time they weren't circling. They were ascending, coming up the stairs. "The bathroom," I said. We ran. I poured salt across the threshold, a line 6 inches thick. Claire turned on the shower. We stood in the corner and listened. The footsteps reached the door. They stopped. Something tested the lock, gentle at first, then harder. "Is anyone in there?" A voice. Claire's voice coming from outside the door. Claire's hand covered her mouth. "Please, I need help. Let me in." The real Claire stood frozen, staring at the door. "Claire, please, it's me. Something's wrong. I'm scared." "Don't say anything," I whispered. Tears ran down her face, but she stayed silent. The knocking continued for 19 minutes. Then it stopped. We waited another hour before opening the door. The office was untouched. The monitors showed empty grounds, no figures, no movement. At 4:45 a.m., we attempted patrol together. Every door was locked. The weather station was dark. The salt lines were intact. At 5:37 a.m., the sun started to rise. At 6:32 a.m., Martinez arrived. He looked at us, at our faces, and nodded. "You made it through convergence. That's rare." "What the hell was that?" Claire said. "The barrier is thinnest on certain dates. Tonight was one of them. They push harder, test more." "But you followed the protocols." He held out his hand for the keys. "Both of you did good work." Claire handed over her keys without a word. She walked to her car and drove down the mountain. She didn't come back for her next shift. Martinez brought a replacement 3 days later. A man named Torres, ex-military, quiet. He lasted 5 nights before he quit. Said he'd rather go back to Afghanistan. I kept working. The pay went up to $600 a night. On my 30th night, I updated the protocols. I added 3 amendments based on my own experience, written in the margins where my brother's notes had been. 28. If you hear someone you love calling from the weather station, do not answer. Do not approach. The mimicry improves with exposure. The longer you work here, the more accurate it becomes. 29. The figure in the jacket is patient. It will get closer each night. Do not let it reach the door. Radio when it appears, even if dispatch responds incorrectly the first time. 30. Keep something from home in the office. A photograph, a letter, something real. When the manifestations try to wear familiar faces, you need to remember what the real thing looked like. Memory alone won't be enough. 31. On convergence dates, expect multiple manifestations and protocol failures. The emergency box contains tools for worst-case scenarios. Use them only if there is no other option. 32. Partners are valuable but also vulnerable. They will hear voices of people they've lost. They will be tempted to answer. Your job is to prevent them from breaking the rules, even if they beg you to let them. I kept my brother's photograph on the desk, not the one from his driver's license. An older picture from when we were kids, standing in front of our grandmother's house. His smile was real in that one. On my 40th night, I saw something new. During the 3 a.m. camera check, the figure in the western feed was holding something. Not a flashlight this time, a photograph. It held it up to the camera, facing the lens. It was the same photograph I kept on my desk, the one of me and my brother as kids, but in this version, my brother was alone. I'd been erased from the image. I logged it and kept working. On my 45th night, Martinez told me they were shutting down the facility. Budget cuts, he said. The university is consolidating operations. This site will be mothballed by March. What happens to the protocols? They'll be archived, filed away. Maybe someone will look at them in 20 years and think we were crazy. What about the things outside? Martinez looked at me for a long time. They were here before we built the observatory. They'll be here after we leave. The protocols just kept them at bay while we were observing. Once we're gone, he shrugged. Not our problem anymore. You're sealing the weather station, right? Permanently? It's been sealed for 41 years. It'll stay sealed. But the door will be welded shut, buried under 6 feet of concrete. The whole structure will be filled and capped. He handed me an envelope. Final month's pay plus severance. Your last shift is in 2 weeks. I worked those final 2 weeks like every other night. 9 p.m. patrol. 10:16 p.m. knocking. Midnight dome rattling. 1:45 heater shut down. 2 a.m. patrol. 2:38 footsteps. 3 a.m. camera check. The figure got closer each night. By the final shift, it was standing at the bottom of the exterior stairs. My replacement was scheduled to start the following week for decommissioned security. A local contractor, someone who'd never read the protocols. On my last night, I left a copy of the binder on the desk with a note. These rules were written in blood. Follow them exactly. Your life depends on it. I also left the photograph, the real one, with both of us smiling. At 6:30 a.m., Martinez arrived for the final handoff. You're one of the longest-serving night guards we've had, he said. Your brother holds the record at 6 months. You made it 4.5. He died because of this place. He died because he broke a rule you didn't. That's why you're walking out of here. Martinez took the keys. Don't come back, not even to visit. This ground doesn't forget. I drove down the mountain with the sunrise in my mirrors. A new hire was starting the following week, someone who needed the money badly enough to ignore the warnings. Martinez would give them the binder. They would read the protocols. They would learn, like I did, like my brother did. And every night at 10:16 p.m., something would knock on the door. The rules are the only thing keeping that place from bleeding through. My brother wrote that. He was right. I hope the next person listens.